waiting, you wonder. You think maybe it's me and I'm being a fool. You sit and you stand and waiting, you wonder. You think maybe it's me and I'm being a fool.
What's up?
Hey.
Tansikia. Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 7 of Here for the Shift podcast. My name is Rachel Yayakikoots. I'm from the Beardies and Okamasas Cree Nation, but grew up in the concrete jungle of Saskatoon. I'm coming to you live from Treaty 6 territory. I am peace, I am love, I am joy, I am happiness and abundance. My intros have changed every freaking episode, so this is what it's going to be today. Thank you for being here. We're super excited that we have a guest today, so we hope you enjoy our show.
Thanks, Rach. Tapasi Atika Tapasa Killabuk. Hello, my name is Tapasa Killabuk. I am Inuk woman from Iqaluit, Nunavut, but I've been living here in Monkinstis, Calgary, Alberta, Treaty 7 for a really long time now. I am an urban Indigenous woman, and I have lived many experiences through this body and this life and this spirit, and I'm just so happy to be here. I am a mom to 3 kids, and they are so cool, and I'm just really happy to be here. So thank you.
Thank you, Tapi. I am Summer from California, Digweño tribe, also known as Kumeyaay, 41 years old. I'm also a mom of 1. He will be 9. And yeah, we're excited for this episode to introduce our first guest. And I'm going to have Shaylin introduce herself and introduce our guest.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Tansegia. My child in the back wanting to introduce herself also. Shaylin McCauley here from Laurent, Saskatchewan, Treaty 6. I'm so excited to be on the show tonight with our new guest, Jolene Creely. She's going to introduce herself. She's a great woman. I have come to know her closely, but I'm looking forward to meeting her and for her to share with us herself. So thank you, everybody, and welcome our guest.
Hi. I'm so excited to be here.
Hello.
Yeah, like everybody said, my name is Jolene Creely. Really excited to be here. I'm a mom. First of all, I'm a mother to 2 children. And let's see, I go to school at First Nations University of Canada. I am an Indigenous birth worker in Treaty 4 territory. So I'm a full spectrum Indigenous birth worker all the way from birth to postpartum. Recently took on the title of sex educator. So that's exciting that I'm blossoming into this new role of, talking about like sex positivity, healthy relationships and things like that. So I'm just excited to be here tonight and to talk about, experiences around, being an urban Indigenous woman. And so cute. I've been living in Regina. I live in Regina for the past 6 years now, which is really surprising because it really felt like I just moved here like a couple years ago. I grew up on Okanese First Nation, which is where I am from. And I'm just excited to get to talking to you amazing ladies tonight.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I guess, we're going to talk about urban Indigenous experiences. That's cool. I didn't know you were doing all that sex education stuff. So that's awesome because I met you when you were doing journalism stuff.
Yeah.
So what made you want to kind of shift gears with that?
Becoming a mother really shifted my whole life. after my birth experience in 2017, there was just something lit from within. And the only way I can explain it is that it was like a fire. And the more I started to learn about, like childbirth things, pregnancy, postpartum things, I wanted to really, I don't know how to say it, but like it was just a calling that I felt to this realm of birth work. And so I followed that calling, and I became trained in birth doula things, and then postpartum doulas and indigenous trainings and things like that for the past couple of years. And lately, just my urban indigenous experiences have made me look at different pathways and different paths. And I was thinking of ways of how I can reach the youth, because I still, like I said, like it just feels like I came off the reserve at 18. And so I'm 24 now. I just had my birthday in April. But, like I was thinking of ways of how I can connect to the youth. How can youth be better at, like who's teaching them sex education? Who's teaching them like the birds and the bees? And, we all know how media influences everybody nowadays, and so I was thinking of I don't know, it was just like another calling was like telling me that I needed to get to the youth somehow. And so I created an indigenous sex education program with Mercedes Redmond. And so she's from the Inca program as well, Rachel. So yeah, I don't know, like it was just like journalism got put on the back burner. Like I really thought I was going to be a journalist, when I came out of high school, but it wasn't until I became a mom, it's like everything just shifted in my mind. And yeah.
Love that.
Cool. That is so cool. I'm gonna follow you on Instagram and creep you for a little while, because that's so cool. Like I think sex education is like so taboo, and I have a 12-year-old girl and like an 11-year-old boy, and like we're starting to have these conversations now, but it's kind of hard to like navigate as a parent, because I'm just like and I don't know where to start or where to end or what that looks like, but I want to be like a complete open book, because like in my experience, like that information wasn't there for me. And I think that led to a lot of like a lot of my vulnerability, but maybe we can talk about that later before we get into it, because we have a fun little game for us to start with. Where's your finger at?
Oh yeah, we're doing this. This is our new game, just so you guys know. It's going to be our like game on our show. So get to know it and play with that and play along too, please. That's it. Where your fingers at?
I love it. Okay, I need everyone, especially our folks who are tuning in with us, to put up, if you're an urban indigenous person, because this is the urban indige things, where your finger at. So put a finger down if you wear cheekbone. What? Sorry, what?
Sorry. Did you explain what we're doing? Sorry, never mind.
Where's your finger at? Urban indige things. So if you are listening to us and doing it, just to be clear.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
So you're going to ask us some questions, and if we've done them or experienced them, then we put a finger down. It's a way to learn about each other and our guests.
Got it.
Yeah. Got it?
Okay, I'm ready.
As seen on TikTok. Okay. Put a finger down if you wear cheekbone beauty. I'm wearing it right now. Put a finger down if you own a Red's Lifestyle sweater.
What is that?
It's a brand.
Oh, no.
Okay. Put a finger down. Put a finger down if you have seen A Tribe Called Red live.
Oh.
Put a finger down if you've had sex with a white person. down if you've gotten an Indian taco from a food truck.
Oh, yeah.
Put a finger down if you've gone to a round dance at a community center. Hold on, I gotta scroll my screen. Put a finger down if you have done ceremony at a museum. Put a finger down if you have protested in front of a municipal building. And now it's your turn. Summer.
Me?
Yeah.
You said I only needed 2.
I know, honey, but I already did 10.
Oh, I forgot.
8.
I'm counting my fingers. Okay. So, what was mine? Mine was, I know one of them. Okay, put a finger down if you have had sex outside during the day. Okay. Do you remember my other question? Because I can't remember my other question.
Put a finger down.
Oh, I remember. Put a finger down if you've had sex in a car.
Happy, you got one finger. Where your fingers at, girl?
Put a finger down if you're here for the shift.
There we go.
Hey.
Hey, man, I can't help it. It's those urban indigenous things.
She has 3 left.
I have 4 left.
Indigenous things. Okay, we got some comments. I just want to throw them up because I want to honor the people that are watching. Haley says, "Oh no," and she's laughing. Hi, Haley. We love you. She also said she's tuning in from Battleford. Powerful women in this space. Right back at you. She's okay. So just before we get into her comment, we can kind of start into that. So Indigi things, we got
Love that.
some laughing happening. I'm trying to get them.
Hey, Kyla.
When it's Summer's turn. They're always about sex when it's Summer's turn.
Sorry, guys.
4 fingers, Elizabeth. That's pretty good.
Woo, twinsies.
And still 7.
Wow.
Okay, that's okay. So
Jeez.
Haley was saying earlier, because we were talking a little bit about sex, which is also an urban indigenous experience, right? It's just an indigenous thing as well. I mean, it's all encompassing, but so Haley says, I'm 18 years old and I needed my mother to have that conversation with me when I first went to high school, which was when I was 13 years old. And I think that came after when Tappy, you were kind of explaining, stuff with your children and how to go about that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What's your where do you share your stuff, Jolene? If you do share your things, and like where can us old people and parents and stuff look at your things? That sounds weird.
Look at the things.
That's okay. Our Instagram page is called Empowering Indigenous Youth. Wait, I need to pull it up. It's Empowering Indigenous Youth. It's been inactive because our program was a 5-week, kind of a trial run under a grant we got funded under. But we are going to make a comeback. We're going to make a comeback and start being more active on the page and sharing more content because we really think it should be a resource open to everybody, anybody who wants to learn about that kind of stuff, I'm trying to get away from the term gatekeeping, but also, just to open the conversation, it's just that being an Indigenous person in these urban spaces, predominantly white spaces, you kind of feel like, for me personally, this is something I have to work through is that, how much Indigenous knowledge sharing is too much, and about the culture vultures who are out there, and that's a fear that I have is that if I share too much, like who's watching my stuff, right? Like who's gonna take this from me and make it their own. And that's what I really found, that I struggle with in the birth work community, right? And a lot of these doulas in this predominantly white space where I work have been um, kind of like using the terms like sacred birth, reclamation, reclaiming and revitalize. And I'm like, where are you getting these words from? And like just and just struggling with that, right? Like being in an urban space. I'm just kind of like, don't want to gatekeep too much, because I know that there are indigenous youth in these spaces who need that guidance and who need that I guess, yeah, just guidance and support along the way, right? I don't come from this place, I don't come from Regina. I'm not from here. And so, again, that culture shock of moving here for the first time, I definitely felt that. And I still feel very new here, even though it's been 6 years. But, I'm finding my community. I found my community, and, my heart is still really tied to being at home. And my goal is to return home soon. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Especially with youth, I think it's so important to have like some sort of social media outlet for them to, because they'll, search things online. And if they can find stuff on social media, like you can do a general search on social media and find different outlets, and so I feel like that's so important to have as a place for information, because like Haley was saying, she wished she would have had somebody explain that to her when she started high school, like we're presented with a lot of different experiences through other people, and what is solid information that we can actually have, and from people we can trust, feel like that we can trust, and rather than have like your school nurse walk around and show you a diagram or a picture and tell you that this is the female reproductive system and this is what happens. Like, I feel like if you can have a personable connection with somebody that is giving credible information, that's even more, that's better for our youth, I feel like. Yeah.
Sorry, Jolene, was that your Instagram page, or is it at a Facebook page, Empowering Indigenous Youth?
It's on both. We're on both
On both,
platforms.
okay.
Yeah. But also, like, a lot of my learning has been through social media. Like, I follow the hashtag, like sex ed or sex positive, following these different hashtags. And there's a lot of resources that are really good, especially for Instagram and Facebook as well. But there has been, these policy changes, and things, a lot of those really good, sex positive pages have been shut down, or their content gets deleted by Instagram because of their policy changes, right? Yeah, guidelines as well. So, I mean, it's out there, and, it's free. And that's where I did a lot of my learning and prepping before I started facilitating those spaces.
Yeah. And it's so important because, like, we have kids of all different ages, and there is sex education all the way down the line. Like, my 5-year-old was asking me where babies come from. And I'm like, and my policy with my child has always been to be very honest and as intentional with my education with him as possible. And so I was trying to explain the process of childbirth, and my husband was like, you just sound stupid, like, just stop. And I wanted it to be I wanted to explain to him in a way that I felt like he could understand. So I was like, okay, never mind. I went to YouTube and I pulled up natural childbirth, and I found a lady birthing in a stream of water outside in a river. And I actually videotaped it because I was like, oh my God, I have no idea what his reaction is going to be. And she wasn't screaming or like freaking out or anything. She was in the squat down position. She had her hands down there. You could see the baby's head come out. and she gave birth and just, you know, cradled her baby. Like, it was like 5 minutes we watched this video, and the baby's crying and the mom's just happy and ecstatic, and, you know, they're out there in nature. And my son, my 5-year-old son, turns around and looks at me, and I have the video for proof. People don't believe it. He looks at me and says, "Wow, Mom, that was impressive." And I was like, he got it and he understood, you know, and I was like, that's what I wanted. I wanted him to have the experience of understanding the birth and giving of life, you know, and I was trying to convey that in my words. And I was like, you know what, let's do this through video, you know, in the best way that I knew. And I was so grateful that I had some sort of a resource that I could show him, and that he was able to educate. I was able to educate him in that way. And he got it. And, you know, and he was 5.
Nice. Gary says, I was doing well with put a finger down until the sex with the white guy question. I think it's the sex with the white person, but don't lie, Gary. Just don't lie.
It's okay. It's a safe space. We all experiment.
I love that Summer. Like Cannon, you know, he's quite young still, but he's very evolved and intelligent and open, and just he's a different kind of kid. But I think, you know, when we're open about that stuff and we open up that space, you know, like for people to you know, to learn that, especially as young kids, because in schools, like as a teacher, the stuff they teach about that, you know, kids don't really care. They're not really engaged. They don't want to hear it. If they're uncomfortable, it feels awkward. You know, I have a 15-year-old daughter, and who's going to be 16 this summer, and she doesn't really she's not really into that kind of stuff. She's not really into boys, or you know, we've talked about it. She's not really into any of that, so I don't really have to kind of worry in that sense, which I don't really worry. But I ask her, you know, like, do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about what that's about? No, ew, no. You know, like, that's her response, and I'm not going to push it.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like she'll come to me if she has a question, because she knows that the space is open for her. You know, it's okay to talk about. It's okay if she has something that she wants to ask about. You know, and I asked her about school one time. Oh, can we talk about something other than school? Okay, well, do you want to talk about masturbation? You know, and she's just like, ew, like, no, like, I'm like, well, there's nothing wrong with it. Just, you know, don't get addicted to porn. You know, we have fun with it, because I think when we're so serious and like, hey, you know, this could happen and this could happen, and this is how this is and this is, and we start putting all these, you know, limitations around things, it makes you feel contracted, and then maybe even in ways shut down, where you don't really want to know, or like, you'll go find out on your own. But the younger, what do you think is too young
For sex?
well, to talk about what that is, right? Cannon's 9, is that what you said? Or you're talking about childbirth, I guess.
Well, and he's been asking about sex, and so I'm like, because, you know, like, he'll catch something on TV or hear something on YouTube or whatever, you know, and as much as we can censor, or they'll catch a conversation, you know, and so yeah, he will be 9, and I'm like, a part of me doesn't want to tell him the whole like sex thing, you know, because I'm like, but if he's asking me questions, I'm always going to give him the best possible answer that I can. And I'm not going to be like, oh, well, babies come from the stork, or, you know, like, I'll try to do what I did with the childbirthing, like, give him the best resource and material that I can, and provide him with the information. I mean, I don't have to get down and dirty, I don't think, with the detail, but I think it just basic general information. And then if he has more questions, because the kid has a lot of questions, if he has more questions, then I feel comfortable to answer them, and I think it's going to be different with every child depending on where they're at. And in understanding their development, because I know each child's development, and depending on their resources, the information that they're able to obtain for themselves will provide them to ask more questions.
Mm.
And so I think every child's going to be different. But yeah, I mean, as a sex educator, what would you say? Like, would you put an age limit on explaining to a child, or would you just allow that child to, ask questions as they evolve? Because I feel like their development is going to be different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's
no,
like
you're so right.
exposed to sexuality, right? Like, are they being exposed from school, from home, from a friend's house? Like, that's kind of where those questions arise, and that interest kind of arises is from the influences around them, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's really important for when they start to recognize and start to experience. I know that a lot of low-key experimented at a very young age, and it's because they're not getting that verbal explanation.
Yeah.
Mm.
Viewing these things, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But like, and Rachel, I like what you said about just kind of like making sure it's on the table, So like, whether it's in a serious conversation or you're just like in a passing conversation and talk and play, like you're saying, like, I just want, to make sure that, like, do you want to talk about it or not? Like, just to make sure that they're aware that it's on the table, that space is safe to have that conversation whenever they want it, because that was important for me growing up. My mom is very open with, sexuality and like our bodies. And, if I ever had a question, I knew that I could ask her without being embarrassed or without being ashamed. And that was something that was so important for me growing up. Like, there was no embarrassment with talking to my mom about my body or sex, and like, but she made that very, very, very clear. As a young girl, I always remember that was something that was, very openly spoken about.
Mm.
What about you, Jolene? Like, was that the case for you when you were growing up? And so you kind of maybe gravitated towards holding that space for others, or was it more of the opposite? And that's why you kind of got, into that stuff.
Yeah, it was more so the opposite. Like, Summer, that is so beautiful. Like, what a beautiful upbringing and relationship to have with your mom. Um, for me, yeah, it was the opposite. It growing up in the a very small First Nation community. Like, I didn't have that kind of, I guess, support system at that age to talk and have safe spaces about that stuff. Like, a lot of it was shame, right? A lot of shame and embarrassment. And um, so, yeah, I think it's just like realizing like how I grew up in the spaces and how that space wasn't available for me. It kind of like kickstarted me to create those spaces and to just have safe spaces and to reach out to younger kids, right? Like, the media again like plays such a big role in this, especially with sex ed. And what children see on these free porn sites is like they think that that's how sex is supposed to be, right? And so yeah, like, the media is getting to the younger ages so much faster and quicker. And
Yeah.
there's toddlers with phones being unsupervised and things like that. It's just, I think we have to start talking to them right away.
Yeah.
Getting to them at a young age so that they don't come across it somewhere else in a not safe space.
Right.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
I feel like that's so important because we didn't have the internet. Well, not we. I guess I can't combine you guys as we because I'm a little bit older, but like growing up, I didn't have the internet. Not that I'm old lady, but I didn't have like Google, you know what I mean? Like we didn't have those resources at the tips of our fingers. And so I didn't see porn until my 30s. Like I didn't even, you know,
You didn't even go rent a porn?
know.
What?
No, like I
You-
remember peeking behind the curtain, like at the VHS store, like at Blockbuster, like those old mom and pop, those old mom and pop, you know, like video stores. And there was like a black curtain. I was like, what is back there? And you'd see like, you know, and I never, and even when I did see it, like it was really taboo for me. Like it just didn't feel right for me. And I don't know. I just never got into it, but I feel like it's so important for our children to know that that shouldn't be normalized. You know, like it's not like for them to think that that is like the ideal of a sexual relationship or a sexual experience because that's not how it is. Like, and you know, you're like, your expectations are sadly going to be extremely disappointed because that's not real life, you know?
Mhm.
And,
Mhm.
you know, and a lot of it is depending on, you know, what you're looking at, but a lot of it is kind of demeaning and a lot of it is, you know, degrading. And it just, I guess it all just depends on your perspective of it too. But, yeah, so that's my experience with that. But I feel like educating and letting them know, like, this is not reality and it shouldn't be normalized in that sense of a sexual experience.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love all of that, and those are things that I've been exploring. But like even when my like kids are kind of like getting to know themselves, but I also think it's really important to have like an idea of what a healthy relationship is and what you can like what is acceptable to tolerate and what is not tolerable. And like sometimes even like with like the normal relationships some of the kids have like other kids have with like in their family members or whatever is normalized in their lives, it comes up in the relationship with my child. And not like a sexual relationship, I mean more like a friendship or and stuff like that. And like I remember that being like that manipulation happening in my life as well, and I adopted some of those qualities where I had to like get rid of. But like identifying those now with my daughter and my son, and just being like, you don't have, just because you had made friends with this person and then they treat you this way, that doesn't mean you have to continue having that relationship. Like that is no longer serving you, and it's not serving the other person as well, because you can't give them that kind of validation. And I think that is really like a really important part of like sex positivity as well, because it's like it's more than sex, I guess. And but I think what you all had said is really, really helpful to I carry this forward.
Mm-hmm.
But while we're talking about relationships, should we go into our questions that we have maybe?
I'm trying to read this. I
Yeah,
can't see
I
them.
feel like you've been asking them in different ways.
Mhm.
She talks about community, Jolene, you kind of talked about community, that you have a
Mhm.
community.
Mhm.
You lived on the res and then you went to the city and you talk about going back, right? Do you feel like being in the city and having urban indigenous experiences has empowered you? And if so, how?
Oh yeah, definitely. I do feel, really empowered because yeah, I don't know, like I feel like, I've been here long enough to have these experiences, and being a doula in this community, really opened my eyes, right? And the experiences definitely helped shape me in how I want to move forward. And so going back and, talking about reclaiming and talking about revitalization and the disconnect that, Indigenous women have with their bodies, the disconnect, with children. I feel, called to talk about that stuff, go home and create the community. And to create those safe spaces to, reclaim, who we are, as Indigenous women. And I think that all starts from when we're, little girls. So, like a lot of, what shaped me into who I am today is that my culture, really helped me along the way in my life with all the challenges that I went through and my blessings. I am, a Cree woman, but I'm also Dakota. My mom's from Manitoba. And so with that, becoming a mother, I feel called to learn about where I come from as well. And so reclaiming, all of me and what, my blood is made of so that my children will know. And, that I think that reclamation, that revitalization of who we are as Indigenous women, our protocols, right? Of what we do in ceremony, our protocols of what we do when we're on our moon time. All of that should start from a young age, right? That's what I had, and I feel like, especially, coming to the city, I say that culture shock was like, I I carry myself differently than women my age who grew up in the city, and I could see that, and made me realize and open my eyes that, I was really privileged. Like I feel like a privileged Indian, and it was like a culture shock that like a lot of the disconnect that I see, in Indigenous families in the city, it's sad, right? And there's a gap. There's a big gap. And that gap needs to be filled some way, somehow, right? We need to connect the urban Indigenous youth to back to their communities, right? There needs to be something to happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
I feel like I'm rambling. Did that make sense?
Yeah,
I think that
100%.
I think that is great because out here in California, I don't know how it is in other places, but where I'm at in Southern California, we have a lot of tribes around us, and there's like the Soboba tribe. There's also San Manuel. There's Pachinka, and we can go to the different tribe council. Like there's like, like a what's it called, the Indian Bureau, like of information that we can go to and find information online. They have information pamphlets if you go to any of like the health clinics out here. That's just from my experience because I'll go to Soboba Medical Clinic, and they have a lot of different community programs and stuff. It's been really difficult because of COVID. So for literally for over a year, they've had a lot of stuff put on hold because of COVID, but for the most part, they have a lot of community programs that you can, send your kids to, and that they can learn Indigenous traditions and basket weaving and beadwork and all these things that I think are really cool, really good, kind of like grounding activities that these kids can be a part of. And even for as adults, they even have like, it's almost like if you were going to do, their community center, you can do different programs and stuff through them. And I feel like that's something that's so important because other than that, we go to your, annual powwow, you know what I mean? Like that's where I get my where I get fed, like that connection with the drum and the dances and the people and the food is where, I'll literally go from county to county just to get that part, you know. And I've taken my son every year since he was born, because that's something that's important to me. But that's basically the only outlet that we have out here, unless we travel, you know, out of state. But I feel like that's something that is important to have, you know, those little outlets.
Mhm. That connection to land, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like so I grew up in in Saskatoon in this city. My dad left the res when he was 17, like pretty much after he graduated and was old and, you know, kind of took off kind of thing. But, you know, we spent a lot of time going back and forth to the res, you know, and having that a little bit of exposure to what it's like to be surrounded by the land and your family and things like that. It wasn't always necessarily healthy in a lot of ways, right? There's still a lot of intergenerational healing that needed to happen. But there was a huge difference between what that experience was like on the res as to what I experienced in the city with my family. You know, so I'm mixed ancestry. My one family's Cree and another family's Métis. So I had to learn, like, by basically leaving a part of the city that I grew up in to another part of the city, that there was a difference. You know, that there was a difference in I was different than other people. Like, I just thought everybody was Indians. Like, you know, like I thought everybody was Native, because no, whether you're on the res or you're in the city and you're poor, right? You're in these specific areas. You're in different, you know, these demographics that happen in the city. You end up in certain areas. Your family's like 2 blocks away. You know, your grandparents are down the alley. I have a huge family. So it was always, that's just how it was. You know, it was always Indigenous people always around me, not culture necessarily and language and things like that. But, you know, there wasn't, and when your family is struggling in a lot of ways, there's not a lot of community, right? There's not a place to go to feel safe and to feel seen and to feel heard. There was a lot of racism actually toward, like, with my Métis family towards Indians. You know, it's like, it sounds ironic, but that's just how it was. You know, there was a lot of that stuff that was happening. And I feel like, you know, my dad would take us to this place called the Indian and Métis Friendship Center. And that was how he kind of found some community. You know, he didn't really speak Cree in the city anymore because there weren't people around to speak Cree. And so it was connecting to things like sports, you know, instead of things like culture and language. And that's kind of how his community grew in that sense. But there was still a lot of disconnection there, you know, still a lot of disconnection from those things like language and culture and traditions and reclaiming those kinds of things, right? But, you know, all of it is essentially just a learning thing, and it's happening for us. So I feel like, you know, Shay, you've had some experiences of living in the city and then living on the res. You know, what's that been like?
So, growing up, like, I attended a regular community school in the city. We lived in Prince Albert, and I lived there for about a little over 12 years. And like, my life was pretty, like, structured into what was available for me, what I could afford, right? And so, being like a student and a young person in the city, I attended whatever was close to me. So, like, I had a piano teacher right next door, and then I would catch, like, a taxi, or a family member would come and drive me to my dance classes. And it was a contemporary style dance, you know. It wasn't, I wasn't put into powwow classes. Like, I did a couple square dance and jigging classes. So my mom really tried to connect that side of where we were. And PHEC was like a huge part of helping with, like, we attended round dances in the city. The nearest res was Muscadet and James Smith. So we would go there, and we would go to the annual powwow over there. And my mom would really try to connect us to ceremony. And so we would go to, my brother would be sent to men's ceremonies, and I would be sent to women's ceremonies. But every summer we'd be sent to the trap line to live there for 2 to 3 months. And so that's where my rites of passages came in, and that's where my elders started to take over in having that connection of the growth in my life that I needed, was that connection with my elders, my grandparents. And so my mom would send me to my grandparents a lot in the summertime, so that I could just indulge in land, in language, and in traditional practices, like living off the land, and how to survive off the land, how to feed yourself, and how to cook and clean and just take care of your surroundings while you're out there. Um, and so, but then coming back to a city, like, and trying to find those connections with your friends, with like society, it was a struggle, because I'm an Indian in white skin, and I'm not connected to any of my Métis side. I was born and raised to be a Cree woman and to carry the values that our people have carried for years, and to just utilize what I was gifted and what I had learned so far, right? So that's utilizing the language, and then to holding on to those values and sharing them with my children and what I can do, right? But then after those 12 years of living in a city, and I really loved powwow. I took all the great things that I learned from being in a city, and I brought them to the res. And I was like, okay, what can I do in my res what have I learned from being in a city that I can utilize to become something in my res, or to what is my res going to provide to me to build on this foundation now, right? So I felt comforting coming home, and I felt hope, because I wanted to connect with the young people in my community now, right? And so it was really nice to come back home to Larange and to be with family. Even though there's that segregation, like families are all in their own little families, right? We're not one big family anymore. Like, we don't all come into
You're making me
together.
cry. I'm just gonna stop.
Sorry, I'm going too hardcore. It's really, that's how my life has been. I'm just kidding.
Aw, God.
He's such a baby. I just love you, Shay. I just love like what you do, and your commitment to yourself and your community is just so beautiful. And I just, I am such a crier, so I'm just gonna
Let it out.
It's happening.
Good.
But yeah, and like, that's like, I really like, I've connected with what you all have said, and I share that too, a big part of what you each of you have said. And my journey is still continuing. I don't know when I'm going to get out of the res. I've been there for like 10 years now, and so I'm kind of like, there's barriers that are coming up to what I want to do in my life. My chapan was a midwife, and all those teachings came to me. But now there's no midwives, there's no doulas, there's not a lot of resourceful connections around me, right? Like, there's the medicines, there's the teachings, it's all there in our community. But where does it go from there if you're the only one trying? And so I connect a lot with Jolene, and like, we connected through like our ancestors being like, okay, smoke signals, on the road, right?
Let their paths cross.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
but I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful for where I grew up and how everything came to be. Because I know a lot of people from James Smith now, and I know a lot of people from Muscadet, and I know a lot of people from all the communities that helped me in my growth. And so I'm really honored. And thank you for listening.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Shay.
Oh, Shay.
Mm,
Thanks for sharing.
yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Mm. I think
Um,
even like, oh,
Sorry, go ahead, Taffy.
it's okay. I'm going to read this. I was so,
Go ahead, because I need my glasses. I can't see crap.
okay. Well, I was just going to say, like, in my, like, I've been seriously have been an urban indigenous person like my whole entire life. I've never had like, and I have, but I was like really young, and I don't like when it was happening when I was a kid, I didn't really like saw the value, and I had a white dad too, so I think that made a big difference. But like in Iqaluit, like they did some things. I'm sure like there was like a community where you were able to like come together and eat food, and that was like a big part of it was like coming together to eat food together and hunt together and like things like that. But like I didn't really see a lot of that because it's not like my dad was gonna eat like seal. Like he's like fuck no. And so like I grew up on eating chicken legs, so I think, but I think there's value in creating that like urban indigenous community because I get to learn from so many like different people and so many different nations and so many different cultures. And even like with what Shay was saying and Rach and Summer and you, Jolene, like I thought, and I thought very like disconnected from my indigeneity. And I felt like I didn't like deserve this space that I'm in, right? Especially sometimes like right now where I am surrounded by other indigenous women, but I had to like kind of flip the script on that and be like, I am indigenous. I am specifically, I am Inuk, and I am, I have the bloodline. I have all of those things, and I don't, I don't take it for granted, but that's for sure. But, I also don't know everything either. And I think a lot of like, especially I work with like Western institutions or nonprofit agencies, and people expect you to know everything or speak about something. And I'm just like, well, no, like I have my limitations. I'm not a walking dictionary encyclopedia, sorry, but like, but it's cool because then you can like if you are in the right space and you're able to like recommend someone else and be like, I'm not really good at that or speaking to that, but like I know a guy.
Yeah.
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 Do you want me to get me a guy?
I
Yeah.
got a cousin.
Can we get that guy?
Yeah.
Those
But
aunties?
I think that's just getting out into those indigenous communities and finding the different resources and finding the different people, like Jolene and like Shaylin and like, figuring out like expanding your circle, and because unless it is that person right next to you or that person that you're constantly around, you're not going to learn new things. You're not going to explore new things, and I think it's just kind of like expanding your feelers and getting out in and learning more about our indigenous communities, and what's available for us as adults and what's available for our children. That's something that's so important because until my mom and dad took us to our local powwow, our annual powwow when we were young, we had no idea. I thought I was Mexican, because here in California, you're either black, white, or Mexican. Who do you identify with? And then maybe there's a couple Asians floating around,
Oh, I'm pretty sure you're something else.
Yeah. Like what?
Did you see that? Like, where they categorized Native people in America
Oh,
as something
yeah,
else. Yeah, that's what.
Or you could like fill in the bubble that says unknown.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
Yeah, or other. Like in school, it was like
Other, yeah.
other, you know, because yeah, my dad's Japanese and white, and my mom Hispanic and Native American. Well, what do you identify with, you know? And it was like growing up, it was the school that classified you. So I was Mexican, you know, and yeah, of course I was in a gang, because you're either going to get your ass kicked or you're going to be with, you know, the nerd balls over there at the table getting food thrown at you.
Mhm.
You know, and so you were either, it wasn't what you identified with as a young child, unless you were specifically like labeled, you know, and the school labeled you.
And speaking of, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, I was just saying, like, I feel like it's important to just kind of branch out into our Indigenous communities and find new people and communicate, you know. That's how we're going to learn. That's how we're going to teach ourselves, because I didn't start learning until it was brought, you know, I was put into that environment. I was put into where my people, you know, are, and learning the culture and learning tradition.
I was just going to speak on when you talked about the gang thing, like Indigenous gangs in the urban areas, right? I don't know what it's like on the res, but in the city, there's a whole shitload of gangs, and a lot of them are Indigenous youth, are Indigenous peoples, and that's people coming and looking for a sense of community. You know, that's what it's been like. And if it's not necessarily like you go to a community center and you're like, oh, I'm going to learn how to drum. People are going, not just going and falling into these places and these gangs in these spaces, they're born into them.
Right.
You're fucking born into it.
Yeah.
This is your lifestyle. This is your worldview.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah. And that's their family. That's their family.
Yeah. And that's your community too, in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah. That's how I was raised.
What?
What?
You cut out.
What did she say?
I said, so everyone throw up their quick gang sign.
Oh, I have one.
Well, just, yeah. Well, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, I feel like it has, I didn't have my family was very disconnected, you know, from a lot of things, especially, you know, I would say ourselves, but, you know, I'm mixed too, right? So I had to go through a process of loving and accepting myself as an Indigenous woman, an Indigenous person, but also loving and accepting myself as a mixed person.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of like, you know, I'll claim this Indigenous part of me, but I'm going to deny the non-Indigenous part of me. And that's just going to keep us in a struggle and a battle within ourselves. And so, you know, reconnecting to community is an external thing, but you can go to all of the fucking communities you want. If you're not loving and accepting yourself within all parts of you, remembering that you are whole and complete and loved no matter what your ethnicity and identity is, then you're never going to find that belonging. You're never going to find that sense of like, yes, this is it for me. This is what I need. This is what I want to be a part of. This is where I want to engage.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Oh, yes, I love that. Thanks for.
Yeah.
Now you should have a gang sign for saying that. We're joining your gang.
Okay. Well, I do have a poon crew and we're taking new members.
And on that note, let's talk about sex.
Okay, let's throw up Nicole McKay's question, or like kind of share here, and then Jolene, if you want to comment. Who wants to read this? Summer, you put your glasses on?
No, I can't. No, someone else read it.
Shay?
I'll read it.
Kathy? Okay.
Okay. Nicole said, I always spoke honestly about sex with my kids, and they were always comfortable asking questions. But when it came down to that moment, I found out my oldest, 21 now, was having sex. I panicked and ran out to get condoms, threw it at him and his girlfriend, and blurted out, I know you guys are having sex and you need to be safe, and joked that if I wasn't having sex in this house, no one was.
Ah, yes. Yes.
Oh, man. And then she also added,
I cried for a week, heartbroken that my baby gave a piece of himself away. Oh,
Yeah, it's gonna.
Oh my
I mean,
oh,
I feel that one. I don't even have a
Yeah.
son.
yeah.
I didn't even think about that. That's messed
yeah,
up.
I know. I was really young when I had sex. Like, I feel like I was way too young to have
Can
sex.
we ask that?
Here's a question. Yeah. Like, when did you lose your virginity and how was it? Not like how was it? It was like, yeah, this is so good. But like,
It was
what happened? Like, because a lot of people, they just do that and it's like 5 seconds and they're like, this is what this is all about. You know what I mean? Like kids, like young people will see that it's like you said, it's not realistic. They have these expectations. So
I'll go first. I started exploring my body. I feel like at a pretty young age, and my mom told me, because I'm sure she, I mean, she would give me a bath and she'd walk in and I'd be like, oh, I wasn't doing nothing, like, and she'd be like, it's okay, it's your body, as long as you're not hurting yourself or anybody else, that's fine. Like, explore your body, and I think so I started my period when I was 12. I remember it was the first day of 5th grade and it was terrible. So I feel like my maturity kind of like was started very young. And then I had sex when I was 14. And I think or maybe it was 13. But it was so, and
it was a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I have it written down in my diary. But I had a boyfriend at a very young age, and he was my first for everything, and it was not what I thought it would be. It was at a drive-in in my friend's car. We went to a drive-in movie in my friend's car, and it was terrible. But I think my mom knew what was going on, but she would also say, if you're going to do anything, I'd rather you do it here than anywhere else. And I think she had me on birth control when I was really young too. So, but yeah, I don't know. It was a terrible experience. And if I had a choice, I wouldn't have done it, but I was curious. And, when you're that age, you don't know what the fuck you're doing. Yeah. Like, you don't. Your frontal lobe is not even developed yet. Like, literally speaking from a medical standpoint, if you know anything about child development, if you ask your kid, why did you do that? What does your kid say? I don't know. It's because they really don't know. Like, that part of the brain has not developed yet. So I feel like, there's a reason why we do fucked up shit. It's for us to learn a lesson, and I wouldn't have done it, but I was curious and I did, and I learned from the experience. And now I'm a pro. So, I've had a lot of years of experience, ladies.
Now you go behind the black curtain.
Yeah, now I can go behind the black curtain. I know all those videos.
I know all those videos.
What about you, Jolene? Do you feel comfortable to share?
Yeah, no, I relate to Summer, I guess. I had a boyfriend really young too, and like as soon as my mom found out, I remember because it was the night she was at bingo on the res, and I was like on his res, and I was like, I'm gonna come because we're gonna go meet. And so it would happen on a bingo night, and
Happened on a big
it was like I walked, we met each other on the road, so cheesy. Walked to his
Oh,
house,
shoot.
um and that's what happened. And like it wasn't, all that I thought it would be. And thinking back on that experience, I remember I did have like somewhat, I think, I don't even know what it was called. I just remember having an after school program, coming off the bus and going to like a workshop or something, like a program, right? And we talked about healthy relationships. But I remember because there was like VHS videos, and like photocopies of like really old content, and we were made to watch videos of like what a healthy relationship looks like, right? And like safe sex. And so it was really just black and white, right? Like it's like if you have sex, there's all these different STIs, STDs, or if you're gonna get if you don't wear a condom. Or healthy relationship, if your man is punching you, or like hitting you and being abusive behind closed doors, like that's not healthy. And that was it, right? And so like
Mhm.
I got into a
They
relationship
never
really.
said sex with your cousin. They never said any of that. I'm just kidding. Well, because it's keep it in the family. Oh my gosh.
What did they call it? TP tipping? Don't go TP tipping.
What the fuck?
So anyways, yeah. It wasn't like, so I remember being so like, do we have a condom, right? Like you have to wear one or else they're gonna get, all these different diseases and stuff. Like I didn't know, right? And he was like, yeah, for sure. Like, and like, I don't know, like it just wasn't all what I thought it would be. And so like I just relate to you, Summer. It's like I wouldn't have done it at the time, right? Like I
No.
wasn't educated, and I didn't know how to, I didn't know how to I don't know, I wouldn't say consent, but like how consent is such a big thing right now, and you can say no at any time, right? And I was feeling uneasy, and I wanted to say no, but nobody told me about consent, right? At that age,
Mm.
nobody said you can change your mind, and so like I don't know. I think a lot of it was coercion because I was so young and my boyfriend was, 3 years older than me, right? And that was his goal. His goal was to,
Yeah.
take that from me, right? And so like, and yeah, I hung out with like the older girls at school. Like I was on the elementary side of school, but my friends, my best friends were like grade 9 and up, and like grade 10, grade 11. And I was hanging out with the older girls and guys, and they all had boyfriends. And so I was like this little girl in grade 8 having a boyfriend who was way old. And so
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of our experience, Shay.
Yeah. Yeah. We were the same age, but and I was the pursuer. Like I was curious. I wanted to know what it was about. Even though my mom was very open and spoken with me, I just think that like my body was maturing and
You were horny.
yeah, I don't know. No, for real. Like it was weird. It was I was very like sexually driven and
Is it appropriate to go bow chicka wow wow?
yeah, but and I'm glad that I can talk about it and I can share that experience because I know that other girls are probably whether they feel pressured or they just have the urge to explore and experience. But I know that it's normal and it's natural. I wasn't sexually abused or anything like that. Like, I felt like my maturity of sexuality was naturally grown. It wasn't something that, like, I was placed in a harmful or hurtful environment. It was just like me. It was natural, but and so I want to say that is, I classify it as being normal. And just because I know my environment and I know my experiences as a child, because I literally was a child. But yeah, I was extremely curious. I was the instigator, and I feel bad for the guy now because I like took advantage of the opportunity, and I was like, I don't give a shit if we're in a car with a ton of people around us at a drive-in, like, we're gonna have sex. So sorry, not sorry. But yeah, so that was me. But okay, go ahead.
Shay.
Hey, right on. I'm so happy to hear that. I'm not the only wild one. Yes. I think my sexual interest or whatever, I think it sparked at a young age, yes, but that's just because I became a woman at a young age, like, but I think it all started off with like masturbation, like experimenting with my own body and what my boundaries were for myself. What did I like? What did I not like? I think I was really into girls before I was into guys. And so that's kind of the sexual interest that I had at a younger age, was girls, experimenting with girls more than experimenting with opposite sex. And I don't know, I never really watched lesbian shit or like indulged in that. I was just, something in me was like, I want to feel good as a woman and I want to make other women feel good. And so that's what it was. And yeah, so I like kissed girls, and I think like I was whatever. My mom was very open as well. Like, she was very she wanted to know what was going on and how I felt about things. And so she really encouraged masturbation and just respecting my body, and to not share it with someone who is going to take advantage of that. Or, we have to have that balanced out love for ourselves and for each other if we're going to share those connections. But I was like 14, I think, when I was with a guy. Like, that's fucking young. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it, I'm like, where was my mother? Like,
Yeah.
like, honestly, like, but she was there. I was disobedient. I didn't want to, I wasn't going to learn what I wanted from her. You know what I mean? And like, somewhere I feel like you could relate to this feeling, because I was like curious about, and it was with a guy who was like older than me, but he was a virgin too. So
Yeah.
so it kind of just, yeah, like the attraction was super equal, and he was such a respectful young guy. Like, we just were on different journeys, living different lifestyles. And I think I realized, like, I dated him for a year and a half, and it hurt, dude. It wasn't cool. Like, like, I asked everyone before I lost my virginity. I was like, hey, what is it like? Tell me, And all the girls would be like, oh my God, you're going to bleed. Like, so many dramatic stories, right? Like, I was like, what the fuck? Like, I'm going to bleed out? What? No way. So I was like curious, because I heard so many stories about other people's experiences. But so I just was curious to find out myself, and we took it slow, and didn't last that long, but we took it slow, and it was whatever, and I was in love after, and
Of course.
we was all not what it was, though. So that was a bonus because I was on the res, you know, like I sometimes think like what kind of person would I be if I didn't move to the reserve and fall in love so young? Because I feel like when you're in a small community, love is a huge piece of that community. And yes, you can share it with your family, your friends that you meet, but it's just so influential of this community of love, you know, and sharing relationships with people. And that's just where I'm coming from. Like I grew up in a very influential community to be sexually active young, you know, and it still is like that. And it's very hush hush with how young the kids are nowadays. And so I really credit Jolene for stepping out of her comfort zone and really learning and expanding that growth in that area, because there is so many unplanned pregnancies.
Yeah.
There are so many young people getting syphilis and getting so many different illnesses from unprotected sex, and not having that that conscious awareness of our bodies and what bacteria we carry, you know, like all the cultures of sex, you know, there's cultures of sex, and we need to indulge in those conversations more with people, because sex should be spoken like there's certain things that aren't spoken about. Like suicide is one of them. Not a lot of people can talk about suicide, but not a lot of people can talk about sex either. So those are super, super big topics for young people, is suicide and sex. But yeah, that was my short story of having sex, and it sure went on, but I'm not really a fan of sharing my body with a lot of people. So that's where I've been at, like, and yeah, I'm really happy with the teachings that I got, and with seeing people be with other people. Like I always thought as a little girl, like, fuck, she can really be with different men. Like all my aunties, all my Nietzsche aunties on the res, man, they would be like uncle here, uncle there, like every other week. Like, oh shit, I couldn't keep up, man. But you know, like, he'd still be your uncle in the end. But so anyways, yeah, I like talking about sex, but I also love talking about intimacy, because intimacy is huge for me, and I think that's a big part of why I don't like, because when I was growing up in high school, you had to have a fucking number to be popular. Like there were so many young women, females, that were like, what's your number? And I'm like, fuck, like my digit, like my telephone number? No.
Yeah, like what? Like partners?
Have a freaking number of like how many guys that you fucked.
Wow.
And I could not believe it. Like I literally could not believe it. It just, and like those girls, like there's so many different types of free spirits out there, but I just could not fathom with that, like to have a huge number at such a young age. Like, and so I'm good where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Love it. Tappy, you could go next, but just before you go, Christina says she was almost 18. It was awful. I had so much desperation to do it, and it was like,
And then it was like,
no, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Christina is my bestie. She and I have been best friends since we were 15. So I remember when she was 18, almost 18, and
oh my gosh.
what had gone down that night for her. So for me, like, I'm very thankful because I was 16. I waited a while because like I knew I was like uncomfortable with it, and I knew that there was some responsibility to go with it as well, but and I also wanted it to be special. And was it special? Not really. Did the person that I was with, like, was very gentle with me, and he was really nice to me. And then we dated for a while afterwards, and I remember he was just like, "I love you." And I didn't say it back. And we broke up like soon after because I just didn't feel it that way. And it like it was actually really good for me, and I think it was the drugs. I think it was the alcohol. Um, but that was like I think I did like cocaine before I had sex. So there's that. And but yeah, it wasn't it was just something that I like had saw something I don't want to call it sacred, but like it was just something that was meant to be like special. And so I waited until that moment, and I was like I was also really scared. I didn't like I don't know, and maybe something had happened when I was younger, and I really don't know, and I don't remember. But I think it was just important for me to wait. So I waited. And then like Frank, 2 years later I was pregnant. So I was like I wish I had learned about all of the different things that I needed to know to not get pregnant, but at such a young age. And but then it was just after that first initial V card, I guess I'm just gonna call it. Like I just went like loosey goosey and was just like, hey, and just kind of like I wasn't like shy. It was like the opposite, and that was just kind of something that was empowering for me until I was like 18, and then I was pregnant, and even in that I feel like that experience was kind of like I'm not saying that it's bad, but like I wish I had learned different things before all of that. Like, what is safe sex? What is healthy sex? Who's going to like who's going to take advantage of you? And in the years, like in the 2 years between like the time that I lost my virginity, I don't even like calling it that. But like and then to the time that I got pregnant, I have no idea how many times I was sexually assaulted. It was that many. So it's um yeah. It's such a weird thing, but I decided like to reclaim my body because it's something that I deserve. It's something that I look forward to. And it's something that that I'm proud of now because I think it's such a taboo thing to speak about, especially for like Indigenous women because of our vulnerability and the ideas of like media out there. But I just feel like frig, I do it a lot with my partner, and that's okay.
Happy, I think that's super important what you covered on like we can get triggers when we are doing sexual intercourse, especially like not trying to categorize people, but this happens to everyone. But specifically, I've encountered this with our young Native women in my community, and a lot of them, when they're losing their virginity, they become triggered, and that could be from PTSD from sexual harassment or whatever the case may be, right? And so that's really something to touch on as well with this topic. That's super important. Like I know that like me in some personal way, like I have experienced PTSD when I've been caressed in a certain part of my body, and I'm like, hey, what the fuck? Like, why did I just feel that way, and like get choked up about it and get like extremely scared. And I'm like, what the hell? Like like, no, I trust this person. Like, why would I feel that way? But it's a
that
huge
trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that though, Tappy, too. And it's just so unique because all of our experiences are so different. And that's why we're going to listen to Rachel's experience.
Well, thank you, everybody. Yeah, for sharing. They are so different. And that's a good thing, I guess, because we could all kind of take something from each other's share. My first time was, first time by choice. I did experience sexual abuse. A lot of it I don't remember. It just started coming more to the surface in the last several years. But I was 15, and it was with a guy, a man, for my first time. And because I'm not hetero, so, but I had a boyfriend, and he loved me, and I loved him and cared about him. It was the young teenage love, and I really just I care about this person. I cared about this person. I wanted to please him. That's kind of what my mind was thinking at the time, right? It wasn't so much like, this is gonna feel so good. It was more like, well, how can I please him? And it was at a party in a bathroom on a toilet. And, not the most romantic thing, but yeah, I was drunk, and I had bled, and you don't think of that kind of stuff. And literally there was probably like 50, 60 fucking people at this party, and it was at a friend's house, and and it's in the past, and I don't like regret it, but I did have reflections about it, as I got older. And I'm actually still friends with the person. We're still really good friends with the person. He's like a brother to me now.
That's funny.
But his mom is like a mom to me. But anyways, that's a whole different story. But yeah, I don't regret it. I think it's, I didn't really know a lot about any of that stuff. My mom wasn't really around. My dad wasn't really a person to talk about that. I just kind of like went with what people were doing, like friends around me. And I didn't have a lot of education in that department, but we were safe, and we cared about each other. So I think that did make, a difference. As much as I think sex is amazing. Sex is, to me, sex is sacred. Like, obviously, I didn't think of that at the moment when I'm 15 years old, but I try to teach my girls, like, not my youngest girl, but my teenage daughter, like, that shit's sacred. Like, your body is sacred. It's a sacred exchange. You're exchanging energy. You're with somebody. When you have sex with somebody, you're literally like allowing the energy of all the people they had sex with into your energetic field, into your spiritual space. And so what happens is we have all these sexual partners, and then we don't clear that, right? We don't heal from that, clear that, and it just ends up like just feeling so dense, and maybe kind of like stuck in places. Yes, and then sexual trauma. But I'm super huge on celibacy, and I don't think it's talked about enough. We talk about healthy sex and sex positivity and what sex, needs to look like, and be safe. But like, fucking celibacy, man, there's so many like positive things in that, because you're using your sexual energy to consciously create things. You're consciously putting that sexual energy into things, into your life. And it doesn't have to be, all just like bone and like whatever, and like get it on, like, whatever it is that you're into. But I was celibate for 4 years at one point, and I did so much healing in that 4 years. And I was just like, nope, I'm not just going to fuck somebody. Like, I don't want to touch anybody. I don't want anybody touching me. I'm really going to reclaim like my body and my spirit right now, and my mind, in all those ways. And I would just be like an advocate for celibacy or like a promoter of that, and so people understand how sacred that really is. You know, the next person that I'm with, because I've been celibate again for like 15 months, like over a year and a half almost, and so it's like I'm very, very conscious about who I share that space with.
Oh my God, whoever you get, man. I'm seriously to throw that out there. Like,
yeah, you're gonna be dynamite.
Like coming back from the store behind the black curtain with all my videos.
Yes.
Just have to relearn everything.
I love what you shared, Rachel, about like how like when people like, especially when people are like fucking people bare, that like numerous amounts of people grosses me out. Like it literally makes me want to throw up. Because I live with a partner.
Yeah. Huh?
What?
You know what I mean. You know what I mean.
No, I don't know what you mean.
Right now,
what?
So talk shit.
What? We're all like this. What? No, I mean, I totally get it. And, you know, like what Rachel's saying, I think what Shaylin is saying about our sharing our energy, and like, the young people nowadays don't see it from that perspective. It's all based on your perspective, the education that you're presented, the information that you have, your experiences. Like, a lot of them don't have experiences. A lot of them don't have information. So that's where Jolene comes in, and she's like, here's this information. These are some experiences that I can share with you. You know, I think that that's something that's so important. And then here's different perspectives. You can be celibate. Look at your, you know, sexual experiences as transfers of energy. You know, if I looked at every sexual experience as transfer energy, I'd be like, fuck that shit. I ain't giving you that. You know, my energy, I feel like, is so, you know, I mean, that's something that is sacred. That's something that's so important. Who I choose to even share my space with, how I think now, my perspective now, who I choose to share my space with is so sacred. So why would I go and share my sexual energy with you? Unless it was something that I was really into, you know what I mean? It wasn't just for the experience, you know? But yeah, I just feel like that's something that is so important. And so learning about different experiences, learning about different perspectives about our sexual orientation or our energy, or sharing our sacred space, like that stuff is super important.
Maybe Jolene, if you want to talk, if it's in your capacity, just like how to say no, like how can kids say no, or like know more of like what consent is, because I think that is something that is very, very important.
Yeah.
If you don't mind sharing, of course.
Okay, first, I think it's important to recognize Nicole's comment, because she says, in my experience and being sexually assaulted, it felt safer to just say yes. Saying no was scarier.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, why does it feel that way? I think a lot of people are afraid of disappointment. They're also afraid of what the person would do or what situation you would be in if you did say no. But I mean, I've been there before, you know. I know a lot of other people have probably been there before. So what's the safest way, and, you know, to present yourself to say no?
I think it would be to like know your intentions, like each person to express like their intentions for the relationship, or for the experience they want to pursue with one another.
But
You know
as
what
a
I
young,
mean? Like,
but as a young, like as a young person, you know, that could be like Rachel sitting on the toilet in a bathroom.
I'd be
You know
like,
what I
babe,
mean?
let's
Like,
hop in the shower.
Actually, just to clarify, I was on top, so
oh,
I
okay.
wasn't sitting on the toilet.
Well, then. But you know what I mean? Like, we put ourselves in so many weird situations as young adults. Like, we end up in random places. Like, we don't put that thought process together about setting intentions and where we want to be in our relationship. Like, I don't think we're thinking about the next step.
Mhm.
You know?
Oh, I think Jolie, I don't know. I thought she froze, but no, okay.
So Jolene, what do you think? What would be your advice in the sense of saying no?
hmm I think it's important for young people to realize their value and worth before getting into a relationship, knowing their own boundaries. If they do go into a relationship, and speaking, just communicating. I think communication is like the most important thing in a relationship. And like I wasn't taught that at a young age, communicate with your boyfriend if you're going to have a boyfriend. I wasn't taught that. And so um finding your voice and knowing just what Shay said, what your intention is. But if you're like 12, like 11, 12, 13, and pursuing sex and all that stuff, this is why I said before, like, it's so important to talk about this stuff before the young lady gets her time, right? Like before she gets her period. Because yeah, like the hormones are raging, and when they do get their time, and in between like those phases, right? There's phases in moon times, and um telling the young like person that to use your voice, right? And empowering them. I think a lot of it has to do with empowerment, realizing your worth as a boy, as a girl, and knowing that you have power in your voice, knowing that you have power in your choice. And when that action is happening, and you can, what is it called, redact your consent. You can say yes, you can be making out on the bed, taking your clothes off, and you can have that switch and say, like, I redact, like, this is, I don't want to do this anymore, and I think it's empowering for the young man or the young woman to know that they can redact at any time, because that's their choice. If their partner's not going to respect that, then they don't deserve that partner, right? You don't deserve that, and you shouldn't be in that situation. And having that power in your voice and knowing what you want, what your own wants and your needs are, and to express that with your partner who you're getting intimate with, like, that is so important. That's what young people need to know.
Right. Yeah. Educate.
And cousins,
Yeah.
kiss. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. Cousins joke.
You're sick. You're sick.
I'm totally.
Is it? Yeah, I think that's really cool, Jolene. And I think, like, I also like, because I think this is, it's weird. I don't know how to phrase this without like, but like, instead of like from a victim's like perspective where someone is going to be sexually assaulted, like, how about the other way around, and the person who is pushing pushing the other person's boundaries. Like, I think that education is just as important, because like, I don't like, I don't know how to explain it, but like, it was
peer
maybe
pressure?
peer pressure. No, but like, maybe there was power structures that were normalized and that person's family, and like the man or the woman of the house were just like, used that, like, use their power against someone to get what they want, and then they try doing that
Manipulation.
the manipulation of the relationship to get what they want. And I think, like, I don't know how to, like, educate, or not educate, but like having those kids to have accountability in the choice that they make as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I know what you're saying. I think it's educating both ends, where you educate the male and the female, and the roles can be reversed, you know, where, like, I was the, you know, pursuer, and I feel like I influenced my partner into probably doing things a bit earlier than he would have liked. And maybe, you know, just kind of like letting them know you can set your boundaries, you know, whether you're male or you're a female, there's boundaries that you can set for yourself, what you're willing to, what your sexual threshold, you know, what you're willing to allow, and what you're wanting to say, like, oh no, I don't want to do that, or I don't want to go there, you know. I think just educating both parties and saying, you know, you can stop at any time, you can say no, set boundaries for yourself. I think just, educating. Educate those little kids.
Do you think they're listening, Jolene?
You think they're
No.
You know, Jolene, in your experience, are they listening? Right? Are they taking this stuff in?
Oh, I thought you meant the podcast.
No, I mean, like, the educational part, because young people, they have access to so much shit nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So do you think that when it's there, the educational part, that they're listening, that they're taking it in, that they're saying, yeah, okay, this is good to know? Or they just like, I'm gonna fucking do what I want anyway?
I feel like they're doing that. They're holding only what they want in their head, so that when it comes to that fucking moment, where is that the subconscious and the conscious thoughts? Like, where are are they there?
Right.
I totally like feel that. And like, because every time you try to educate young people, they're like, oh, I know, I've heard it. I know. But then when it comes to the time, it's just like poof.
Yeah.
It's gone. Hey.
That's what I was telling you about the frontal lobe and how it's not developed yet. And you ask a kid, why did you do that? And they say, I don't know. It's because they really don't. Like, yeah. Yeah.
But they do. They have access to whatever the fuck they want. And porn is mainstream education nowadays. Porn is the education. And it's freaky. And so now there's a lot of people stepping up to education around pornography, though, and just trying to critique that and expose it, because porn is another thing people don't like to talk about. That's the uncomfortable topic.
Yeah.
But you know what? Like, I've asked my own sexual partners, like, how many times do you watch porn, or do you watch porn? You know, like, I like to ask those questions.
So it's like known that porn lowers your vibration, right? Because it's not actually, because it's programmed. It's a program, right? Like Summer said, it's a not realistic, and it's this program that where you're like, okay, this is what you're gonna do. This is how this is gonna go. Like, this is entertaining. So it sets off those things, those activations in your body and your mind, and you think, okay. But it lowers your vibration because it's like an addiction. You want that feeling when you watch it, but all you're doing is like going through that cycle on the hamster wheel of like getting that feeling. But then you go have sex with somebody and you're not getting that feeling. You're not getting that feeling. It's not feeling the same way that you thought it was, because your mind is programmed now to what it was that you were watching all the time. And so now your whole vibration has shifted, right? Your energy has shifted completely, because
Well, like
You-
even the girls on there, the girls are like, oh, I gotta look like that girl. My butthole has to look like her.
yeah, like what the fuck?
Summer, you feel me? You made the post about that chick spreading her ass cheeks to the sun. That fucking
Oh
lit me up.
yeah, to
Hey,
get sunlight.
it's butthole shining.
That's a porno.
Literally, girls are like, I don't look like those porn stars, and
Mhm.
Right.
my dick isn't that huge, or
Well,
what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Look, I mean, girls, they're going to get their labia skin cut off because they don't look like the girls in the
What?
porn. They're getting, it's true. They're
Why?
going to get, it's called vagina.
Labiaplasty.
Yeah, and they're like vagina rejuvenation.
What?
It's
Just
crazy.
put some cream on, rejuvenated or something.
It's not.
Please do not do that.
No. It's
If
not
anyone's listening, that is
Oh yeah,
not.
this is not medical advice.
yeah. Don't do that.
Everything you take
yeah,
from this show is at your own risk.
So Shaylin, yeah, I mean, because in that sense, yeah, I totally get it. Where people are like, yeah, we should look like this, and mine doesn't look like that. So then,
Oh yeah.
Mine does.
Give us your details.
What cream are you using?
I'm just
Skin product.
Aveeno,
Use.
oats, or what?
The good stuff.
yeah.
Y'all are awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for
So many good
sharing today. We had so many good laughs, and Jolene, thank you so much for your the putting this out there for us, because to be honest, we as a group had talked about this a couple of weeks ago about how we're gonna have a show about sex, and then we were all like, oh no, not sex.
My mom.
We're not ready.
You guys wanted my
Burned
mom
into
on
the
the
topic.
show.
we are bringing Mama Callie on the show. We are bringing Mama Callie on the show. Jonna, you're coming on the show before the season ends, so we're gonna have lots of fun with it.
Oh my God.
Also, you
But-
don't get a choice.
One more thing, should we give the best sex advice we can before we
Ooh.
start off?
Mine is to be celibate.
Be celibate.
No, I mean, I don't know. Whatever you guys want to do.
Okay.
We do need to wrap up.
That, but I don't even know what kind of advice I'd give.
I think.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Love yourself. Just love yourself unconditionally, and you deserve the pleasure. You deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
So just fucking embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, happy.
Yes. But that's all I want to say. Thanks for coming to my tap talk.
Well, and Shaylin had said something about exploring and knowing your body and understanding your body, and I feel like that is the best advice if you are in a sexual relationship or wanting to get in a sexual relationship, is knowing your body, knowing what makes you feel good, what makes what doesn't feel good, and setting your limits and boundaries, and loving yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is, because if you love yourself, then you can allow somebody else to love you in a similar way. And hopefully it's with somebody that you love and that you want to share that sexual energy with, and that energy transfer. But definitely love yourself first.
Yeah. I think that, it was very similar. I don't really care to give advice to people because I feel like people have the answers within them. And so that self-awareness is very important.
Mhm.
Self-awareness is the number one thing that allows you to know yourself in a way that you're not going to find somewhere else outside of you, and like Summer and Tappy said, love yourself and appreciate yourself. And we can get into these things. We can tell stories and shame ourselves and, oh, I should have done this, or I wish I didn't do that, and beat ourselves up. But try to like see the light in your experiences, right? So maybe you did have a bad experience the first time, but know that that doesn't have to be like that all the time, right? You can choose what kind of experience you want to have when it comes to sex, when it comes to intimacy. And a lot of that is going to come from knowing how to connect to yourself, knowing what you like, knowing what feels good, what doesn't. And yeah, having boundaries, right? Like, no, that's not, I don't like that, and being able to speak your truth about it, not just like, that doesn't really feel good. I'm not really into like my feet, that happening to my feet, but like I'm gonna go with it. No, don't fucking go with it. Like, shut that shit down and speak your truth and choose something that does, and be able to communicate. If you can't communicate with the person that you're fucking around with, why are you even bothering?
Yeah.
So that's what I think anyways.
Yeah.
I love that. That's great advice. I love it all.
It's not advice.
I think I honestly like.
It's great, not advice.
It's great. The one thing that really comes to my mind, and like everyone thinks this is so stupid, but I don't think it's stupid. I say like this is coming from a person who is allergic to latex. Wear a freaking condom. Like, I'm not even kidding. Taking care of down there is extremely important, and wearing a condom is the number one thing to do to protect yourself and that other person. I think that overall, like, mainstream education society is like all the background information is about oral contraceptive what? My honey in the back contraceptive. No, but like that's what it is. They just base it around protection in that area. But like I can't stress it enough, like, because there's so many illnesses going around nowadays that it's just out of control. It's chaos. And so like all of you women gave out such great advice about loving yourself and taking care of yourself. And if you do that, you will protect yourself by using a condom and use a condom like with people who you're just gonna fuck around with. Don't just go and use no protection with anybody, right? Share your bare skin with someone who's going to love you and respect you for the rest of your life,
Mm-hmm.
And like coming from experience, truly from my heart, like protect yourself downstairs and upstairs, right?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
yeah, that's really my advice.
Brush your teeth.
Beautiful.
Brush your teeth.
Brush your teeth and your tongue.
Brush your teeth, put your cream on. Say it gangs, like, just fucking love yourself.
Jolene, do you have anything to add before we're all done?
No, all you ladies, like, spot on with everything that was going through my mind. Just took the words out of my mouth. But no, for real, like with Shay, like, man, like when I was a teenager having sex, being in relationships, like I was the one with the condoms. Like I always had it. And like that's something that empowered me was like, my boyfriend's not going to make an excuse because I have it right here, right? It's like
Mm.
that was empowering for me. Like I was always stocked up, and I was like, you know, like really protecting myself, right? Because we don't know where, you know, like we don't know, right, where people have been, what they've been doing. And
Right.
so that was something that, like, my advice to young people, especially young ladies, you're allowed to carry a condom. There's female condoms too. And I was when I was teaching the class, like our sex education class, and I was talking about that, and a lot of them were like, what the hell is a female condom? Like they haven't heard of that stuff before. And so I'm like, yeah, like just carry stuff with you to protect yourself. You know,
Yeah.
there's no excuse for a male to make up all these different excuses. Carry like latex free stuff, you know. But also, yeah, just like love
It's
yourself.
latex,
Like,
and I still go get it prescribed, and it's
Mhm.
there.
yes.
There's no excuses, you know, and
Mhm.
fuck their saran wrap.
There's no. There's actually sheepskin ones. So
Yeah, there
Yes.
is.
there's different kinds. Yeah,
Yeah.
because I'm sensitive to latex also, and I don't use that shit.
Yeah.
Well, fuck, I ain't getting laid. But
Sheepskin, like,
back to you, Jolene. I just wanted to share that there are alternative, you know, options.
Yep. Mhm.
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
And like
No,
even like sorry, this is a whole nother topic, but like birth controls,
No.
like that is huge. It's a whole other topic though.
No, that's a whole other show.
Yeah.
yeah.
I like to do one of those shows though.
We'll do another show.
Yeah, we'll see you next week.
Yeah, so are you, sorry, Jolene, are you?
Oh yeah, no, that was it. No, everything everyone said was really good advice, solid advice.
Yes, I agree so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for joining us today. We love and appreciate all of you so much. Thank you for sharing your stories, playing the game with us, your comments, and engaging. We really, really, really appreciate it so much. Jolene, thank you for being our very first guest. We are going to grab your address from you so we can send you a shirt. And you know, hopefully maybe one time we can have you back on the show and talk about some other stuff, because that would be amazing.
I would love to be back. You girls, you ladies are so amazing. I love each and every one of you.
Thank you so much. Everybody
We
go
love
check
you.
out. Yeah, we do. Go check out Jolene Creely, follow her, creep her, check out her empowerment for Indigenous youth pages, and have a beautiful week. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe. Sending you lots of love.
And send me happy birthdays on
When?
When?
On what day?
on the 5th.
Happy birthday, Shay.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Next
And
Much.
if anyone
you
has
gonna
any
be 19?
questions,
Oh, good shit.
19.
23.
19.
Yeah, and if
Right.
anyone has any questions for us or for our guest, please feel free to email us, right, ladies?
Yes.
Yes. Email us. Next week we're going to be beginning our two-part series of episodes on relationships. So tune in next week, Monday, 8:30 p.m. Central Time. Yeah, thank you all so much. Have a good night.
Go ahead.
Good night, everybody.
Peace.
See you guys.
Love you, Jolene. Love you guys.
Thank you.